How are you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
I not, not to be funny right from the beginning, but I can't believe I just this is weird because I'm talking right to your face. I can't believe I just texted Porsche Lynn.
Aw, I can't believe my lighting is so crappy in my own podcast studio. I'm like, what the hell? I'm supposed to have all this great lighting in this studio. Not that it's all that great, Jason. So when you come, ooh, ooh, it's like a UFO. I'm like, what the hell?
Oh, and I got a big old sunbeam on me.
Yeah, you look great. I look like I'm talking to you from the bowels of hell.
No way. It looks very cool and artistic.
It looks good on your end. Well, maybe
Yeah.
we'll just go with that. That's too funny. Um, all right. Well, I can't believe I'm talking to you. You are super famous.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Legends in our own mind, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like your room, and I
Anyway.
believe I've seen that before with when you were speaking with Patrick Palmer.
Oh, he's a big fan of yours too.
Yeah, Patrick is oh, you want to hear a funny side story? So
Yeah, of
Patrick
course,
basically
always.
so last year we started this all celebrity request march. So I mean, I guess this is like season two. It's definitely year two, but maybe we should start calling it season two. But
Mm,
so Patrick helped me with everyone last year. I've made a joke that
uh-huh.
he's my gateway drug to all celebrities. And so I made it a point, and I told this to Patrick, and I said, please don't be offended, but this year I'm doing all celebrity request march by myself. And because it's too easy if I say, hey Patrick, can you get me so and so, so and so? Because he like literally knows everyone.
He knows
And
everyone.
so, and this is just weird serendipity. Oh my goodness, I feel so bad. I can't remember his name. Uh, he's kind of your assistant, kind of a jack of all trades. He says,
Josh.
Josh, thank you. Yes, I knew it was almost like Jason.
Yeah.
So Josh put us in contact together. And he just said something about oh well no, at first he was just saying, I love this video and I actually work with Porsche Lynn. And I was like, well, at first it made me, I didn't even answer him for like a day or two because I hear
Of
so
course.
much weird stuff where, I don't know, people will tell me like, that's my mom or I dated her in high school. And who knows if people are telling the truth on the internet. But I thought about it and
Right.
I said, oh, well, that's cool. Tell her she did a good job. Something just like that. Just there's a real quick sentence. Oh, cool. Tell her she did a good job. And then I don't know, like a day later he said something and I was like, I wonder if this is real. And so I just kind of like shot my shot. I was like, hey, well, if she ever wants to do anything together, tell him to get a hold of me. And like a week or two later, and this felt like a Christmas miracle. Like a week or two later, he DM'd me. So now we're not talking in public anymore. And he goes, "Well,
Right.
here's her email if you want it." And I was like, "I don't know if this is real or not." So I believe it was either the day before Christmas or the day before Christmas. I think it was the day before Christmas Eve. I emailed you. Well, I guess I'm telling the story. I emailed you the day before Christmas Eve. You responded. I was like, "Holy shit!" Okay, so I'm telling the world's longest story. So, anyways, we talk, and I ask you if you'd like to do this. I don't think I said it right off the bat. I might have just said, "Oh, I love your work," and you said, "Oh, I would love to." And hand to God, the next day, not even 24 hours, then like I woke up and had an email from Patrick Palmer that said, "Hey, Portia Lynn likes your show. Maybe you should try to get her on All Request March." And I was like, you have to be kidding me. So it's almost like he was messing with me. And I told him I was just being jokey. I was like, too late. I just asked her yesterday.
That is awesome.
So
And
just
my story is kind of similar because when Josh showed it to me, he was like, "Do you know that this exists?" And I'm like, "Well, I've kind of heard of them." And I said, "I think they've gone through a couple of reinvents." And I said, "I'm not recognizing the Barefoot and Independent, but I'm kind of recognizing the premises." And then I started, and he's an interesting character, and he was in my face with it, and he was like, "But look at this, you got to watch this." And I was like, "Okay, okay." And I started like, I was just going to satiate him with like a couple minutes. And all of
hmm
a sudden I was in like 20 minutes and I was laughing out loud, and the memories were coming back from the Debbie Does Dishes set, and how Nina and I were like doing that film together, and thinking, "Oh my God, is this ever going to be worth even the film that it's put on?" And I started laughing, and I was like, "Oh my God, what a great premise." It is such a weird, campy vibe, all that stuff from the 80s when we were leaving 35 millimeter film and going to VHS. It was like a historical thing. And at the same time, it's just this encapsulated part of pornography that has never really been reinvented, in my opinion.
Uh-huh.
But the campiness just made me laugh so much. And I thought, oh my God, all of those videos that were shot with in that era, you could take all the sex scenes out and you could just watch the dialogue and it would be so hilarious. And I thought, what a great idea. I gotta like meet this guy. And then I think you were like, well, we actually met on something. And I was like, oh God, I'm so sorry, I don't remember. But what a great idea. I just like, I was so, the nerd in me was just like, oh, this is too funny. And you're so knowledgeable about the era. So it's like it's an educational as well as entertaining.
Well, thank you. That's a great way to describe it.
And
And
how weird that you live in Arizona. What are
well,
the chances of that?
how weird that we're both from Michigan and we
Michigan.
both live in Arizona.
Well, that's not so weird. Considering the weather in Michigan, we were both probably like, anything west has got to be good.
Yeah. Uh-huh. So just for the people at home, we're talking about Night of the Living Debbies. Night of the Living Debbies, that's who we have to thank for this conversation today. And technically, Night of the Living Debbies is Debbie Does Dishes Part 5. They dropped the title, but it's still Debbie Does Dishes. When Henry Pritchard took over, they just started naming them whatever. Like part four was Debbie for Hire, so that was kind of in the vein. But oh boy, do I love that series. I have been saying for years that there's just something magical and special about that series, and it brought us here today. So that's another point for me that I'm right. That is well, you know this better than anyone, and I promise we'll get to why we're here today. But there was such a difference, a sea change when it went from filmmaking to video production. And that's my number one example of when a lot of people, especially film snobs, film preservation people, will turn their nose up at when the VHS era, the silver era. They're like, oh, the 35 millimeter golden era. And that's my number one example when I say there was still so much creativity. They might have had 25% of their budget, but there was some people out there that were still trying to do story driven. They were still thinking that there has to be entertainment. We can't just take the story out and show sex scenes. And I mean, it dwindled and dwindled and dwindled, but my example of that they kept the fire alive was the Debbie Does Dishes series.
Yeah, and I don't remember why it changed. I think there was something with the original, maybe production company or the rights of the Debbie thing. But I remember when I worked with Henri Pichard on the Debbie Does Dishes, there was a thing with a joke on the set was it doesn't matter, it's just another Debbie movie, and,
Uh-huh.
and we can't call it that because so and so, and I really can't remember the history of it, but it is interesting when you talk about going from 35 millimeter film to VHS, because as I was watching The Girl with $1 Million Legs again,
Hmm.
um, I was looking at that as a medium, and I thought, this is interesting. I never really liked VHS because I always thought film had such a richness. There was so much depth, and then when I was watching the VHS again, I was like, oh, this is an interesting medium. It
Hmm.
is. There's something grainy about it that I kind of liked. There's
Hmm.
something interesting about it as a medium, and yeah, so it was just as I'm looking back, and I had a situation. This is way off topic, sorry, but I had HBO was contacting me for a documentary they're making on my soul sister. Well, it's complete now. Robin Bird in New York City, and they were asking me, they said, hey, we've heard you may hold the holy grail of all um, uh, vintage porn and whatnot. And I was like, well, I don't know if I go quite that far. And they were looking for some footage of me dancing. And I said, well, I've got some stuff on VHS. I don't even know if it's still in good shape, whatnot. And so I'm looking through this box of VHS tapes trying to find me dancing.
Hmm.
And I find one and I'm like, holy crap, how am I going to actually check and see if this is any good still? So then I go through my box of old equipment and I find an old VHS camera in there. I pop the tape in the camera. I'm looking through the viewfinder, seeing if the tape is still good. And I'm like, bloody hell, the tape is actually still good. I know exactly where this is from. This is from me dancing at the X-rated Critics Award show in like 1990, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. So VHS, I always tell people, hey, don't get totally down on VHS. It's got a magic that was special. It was a certain place and time. I think it brings us all back to the fact of when, if we're talking about porn, when it came out of the theaters and came into everybody's house, or it was
Yeah.
on the hotel rooms that we were checking into, and it had an amazing purpose. And I got to tell you, some of these tapes are 25, 30 years old, and I haven't kept them in the most pristine environment my whole life, and they're still good. Who knows how much longer?
Yeah.
But yeah, don't dish on the VHS.
There's been such a revolution. If you go to Tubi and just type in the search bar VHS, there are like numerous documentaries on the subject. VHS revolution. Oh God, I'm gonna blank. But anyways, there's so many of them. But the funny thing is that every single one, because these VHS historians, they know the deal. All of them say why VHS beat beta and why VHS, the home market, took off so extreme was adult films. Because you didn't have to go to a theater anymore. You got to go to the privacy of your own home.
Amen. And it's so true. I've always said for years when we were still included in the old CS Consumer Electronics Show, when we were still allowed to be with everybody, and we'd have everybody from Richard Dreyfuss to the wrestling guys to Penn and Teller to everybody be coming back behind the red velvet curtain to see us from the other portion, and just thinking how I always the great mystery for me was, does porn drive technology or does technology drive porn? As we keep seeing, it makes a little jump because I still remember. Do you remember laser discs?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And it got projected onto a wall.
I was never lucky.
So
Never lucky enough to own a laser disc, but I own a couple of them. If I see them at a thrift shop, I don't even care if I don't like the movie or not. I just buy it just as like a collector. I'm like, I have to have this big old laser disc.
they're incredible, and they were really there was a lot of creativity into the making of them,
Mhm.
and then yeah, and why VHS did beat out Beta because we tried that for a little bit too,
Mhm.
and we went, and I'm sure the historians know the story way better. And then I laugh today, Jason, because I look at these kids buying the vinyl, and it warms the cockles of my heart when I see vinyl, like 2, 3 rows of vinyl in Target and Walmart, and I'm thinking,
Yeah.
wow, technology takes us so far, and then we loop right back, don't we?
Yep. Yep.
It's amazing.
Okay, so I will probably introduce you in front of the green screen when I do my regular spiel, but I'm going to introduce you here as well, just so I have coverage. I've got it two places. Okay, so
Okay.
um, all right, so today we are here with the one and only at Barefoot. We call her the Queen, Porsche Lynn. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You are welcome, my army of angels. If I'm the queen, you have to be the army of angels.
I'm there. Sign me up. So we
I
are,
love it.
so this is All Celebrity Request March, and you chose the girl with the $1 million legs. This might be a generic question to start, but why did you choose this selection?
It was really tough. We had several titles that were batting around, at the end, I was really torn between several titles,
Uh-huh.
and I chose this one because it was the classic start of my career. And without the girl with $1 million legs, who knows how my career would have went. But to have the support and the contract, there were girls under contract before me. Ginger was one of the first, and and I was second, maybe third. I don't know. We won't fight it out. But to have a contract, to be like the Paramount MGM contract girl, and to have my legs insured for $1 million, and for a little white trash girl to be going to Paris to shoot a movie was like living a dream. Really, I just felt like I was living in a dream, and the movie really was the launch of my career. It was where everything for real began, and that's why I ended up choosing it.
That's very cool. Oh my God. Well, first of all, did you have your legs insured for $1 million?
Yes, did you not know that?
I thought that title just meant you had really good legs. I thought that meant like
I
you
never
got
thought I
some.
had.
No, I didn't know
I
that.
know I never thought my legs were that great. I did have that. It was a total marketing. I don't want to say scam because it wasn't a scam, but it was a total marketing ploy. Same with when they did it with Betty Grable. It was a marketing ploy.
Uh-huh.
And the Dino Ferrari was obsessed with my legs, and, and he was like, "I want legs like that." I later learned why he wanted legs like that, because he loved to wear stockings and garters, and they would look really good with legs like mine. So
Uh-huh.
um, it was a great idea. He was not wrong. to get and like I said, it was a ploy to bring attention and something to say. You know, when you get introduced on a stage, whether you're featuring in a club or you're on Morton Downey Jr. or all those Maury Poviches, Geraldo's, all those shows that we went on back in the day, they would introduce us as kind of the niche, and my niche was the girl with $1 million legs. So it was a great little thing. He was smart, Dino Ferrari. He was a smart businessman.
That's so amazing. Hey, I'm gonna get this sunbeam off me real quick.
Okay. I was like, it looked like you're getting your angel blessings.
Yeah. Oh my, the what did you guys ever this is such a stupid question. Did you guys ever want to do a race cars as in a Ferrari versus a Porsche? You and your producer?
Of course. Of course we did. We called it Grand Prix.
Yeah.
We went to Italy to shoot on Mario Andretti's personal racetrack. And again, little white trash girl from Michigan going to Italy to shoot some movies was like, oh my God, this is like a dream come true. Um, and we got there, and Dino Ferrari was like, well, he doesn't have any Porsches, but he's got some Formula Ones, and they're all Ferraris, but we'll just pretend and make it work. and Andretti family was super welcoming to us. They were super kind to us. We had everything we needed to shoot a couple of scenes at the track in the garages with the Formula One cars. And when we were all done shooting, the young Mario Andretti at that time, the son, said, "Hey, you wanna give it a spin?" And I was like, "Are you kidding me? I mean, are you insured for that?" And then I look at Ferrari, Dino Ferrari, and I said, "Am I insured to get in this car?" And is it okay? And he was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Go for a look." I mean, we didn't take it up to any great speed, but just getting in those cars was like such an experience. They're so small, they're so close to the ground, and thinking about the speed at which they go around the track was really impactful on me. When I got out, the kid was like, "What'd you think?" And I said, it was amazing, and I have utmost respect for what you do as a sport. This is really interesting, to feel this car moving so tight to the ground and moving around. And I don't even think we broke 60, but it was amazing. So there's that one. I
We
always say I should have got a Porsche as a gift, but never had that.
I
I did
can't.
have a Porsche, but not as a gift from Dino Ferrari.
Oh man. So Jack Remy directed this. This is the fifth film of his that we did. I only recognize, well, hold on, let me think. Yeah, I only recognize three names: Jack Remy, Porsche Lynn, and Paul Thomas. So I've got some work cut out for me. This is like, well, it's overseas. So when I'm looking at all the cast, usually I can like nerd out and be like, oh, I recognize her, I recognize him. And so this is a whole new world for me. What was it like? Because you shot way more than this. You went overseas and shot a bunch of, I guess they're not foreign films, but I mean they're on foreign soil. What was it like? I mean, obviously you said from Michigan to Paris. I mean, did the crew speak English?
No. Not much. We had translator always on set. And you do know why we were going to Europe to shoot,
I don't.
because technically it was still illegal
Okay.
to produce pornography in Los Angeles County.
Hmm.
And Gino Ferrari already had the offices in Paris, uh, I want to say Hamburg and Milan, I believe. And so he said, you know what? I'm not dealing with all this mess. We're just going to go to Europe and shoot. Was it legal to shoot it in Europe? It was kind of gray, but it was
Yeah.
more legal than it was in the United States. But it was an interesting time because we were utilizing a lot of European talent that didn't speak English. And when you're on set, you're going to the person that you're going to work with, and you're talking about, well, what do you like? What do you not like?
Hmm.
Is there anything shouldn't say or do? Or we're negotiating because we want to ultimately create a great scene. And for certain individuals, there was like things like "Don't ever touch my nipples," or you get somebody like John Leslie who's like, "Just always touch my nipples, okay?" And we're like, "Oh, okay, that's good." You learn these little secrets, right?
Uh-huh.
Um, and it really was a whole different world. And that's good, the good, the bad, and the ugly. When you can't speak to the person and you're trying you're trying to say to the person you're working with, hey, slow down just a little bit, or oh, I need more lube, or oh, I got a Charlie horse in my leg. And
Uh-huh.
the person you're working with is like, I don't understand what she's saying. And we would try to learn a little of German or a little Italian or a little French. And, we Americans are bloody awful with that, anyways. And having the translator was good, but sometimes the translator didn't always have what I call the American slang, right? Because I say there's English and then there's American, and that's why I'm bilingual. I speak English and American. So it was an interesting time learning to navigate through some of the different problems or situations that would come up. And culture wise, the big lunches and the late meals, and just a totally different culture. But I think it was a great cultural exchange time. It is one of the reasons why I made so much impact in Europe. And still today, I get fan mail from Europe, like handwritten notes from Europe. I
Uh-huh.
love you. You're so amazing. You always be number one. And would you sign this index card and send it back to me? And I'm like, okay, Stuttgart, Germany. Well, that's interesting. And yeah, it's hard to give a one answer to that question because it was an amazing time and challenging, rewarding, all in the same stroke.
Very cool. Um, well, I guess not off topic. It's still on the movie. Paul Thomas sung the theme song. Do you happen to know or do you happen to remember if that was a post-production thing or was that song alive during that's my question. Was that a song during the movie or did it come as an afterthought?
It was alive before the movie. We
Oh.
were already planning that it would be kind of a, I know this is going to sound, I know this is going to sound crazy to the audience, but it kind of a Casablanca, uh, Casablanca. Oh, I'm trying to think of the movie. It's an English film where she goes from a beggar to I won't pull it right now. Pygmalion, and so it was kind of this weird mishmash. And Paul Thomas is an amazing singer, and he played the piano for real. That was not somebody else playing the piano.
Oh,
So they had written the song, and Paul Thomas, always referred to him as PT. So if I referred to him as PT, that's why.
okay.
He was formulating the words from the song him, and I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe is the writer of the actual Girl with $1 Million Legs film. And so the song was written. Paul was still messing around in between takes and things on the set. PT and I would get together and we would kind of go over the song a couple times and he would play things. He'd be like, "How do you like this?" And I'd be like, "I love it. I think it's awesome. I think you're
Hmm.
super talented." And I it was great. So it was kind of before, during, and I think after they cleaned it up a little bit. But
Right.
I do remember it was shot on that set in that weird little kind of cafe that we were shooting in, that for a bunch of stuff for that movie. And so I don't know if they took it in one take and that's how it ended up, or if he had to go in and clean it up a little bit, just sound wise.
Hmm.
But he was in Jesus Christ Superstar on Broadway.
Yeah.
PT, go figure. Yeah.
You saying Casablanca made me realize, or not made me realize, but the this movie is very romantic. Like,
Yes.
and you can't say that with a lot of adult films. There's so much. I mean, you guys both have a backstory of heartache. You're coming together. You're both like really vulnerable, and PT Paul Thomas is very like the opposite of braggadocious. He's very insecure. His previous girlfriend broke his heart, and you don't usually see that in movies. Guys want to be like macho, and it's just it's different, and it's very it stands out because of all those things I just said.
I completely agree with you. And when I watched it again, I was really impacted by how we talked about the campiness and how we knew we weren't being serious, but we were being so serious that you just had to laugh at us and go, "Okay, this is too funny." But this was like PT and I worked on this, and we were like, okay, this is kind of a love story of two people that are totally brokenhearted, have gone through really terrible things, and are maybe swearing off that they'll ever find love or see love again. And now they kind of collide together in a world. And so we worked on that. And the other thing I'll tell you, this is a big inside thing that I um, remembered when I watched the footage, is it's actually true. He was just coming out of a marriage, and I was leaving a relationship that was had ended in domestic violence.
Oh
And
man.
so I was just getting out of that, and I had just gotten out, gotten my own place, was working my way through what I had experienced, the trauma and the violence of a in a relationship. And I was kind of taking a breath. I was like, okay, I'm going to go to Paris. I'm going to have 6, 9 months in Paris. I'm going to be able to put myself back together. And when the writer came to me with the first draft of the script, I was kind of enraged. I said, "How dare you use the name of my ex in this film?" I said, "You could have used any other name. Why would you do that?" And he said, "I was going for reality. I wanted to see a real reaction." He said, "You're a decent you're a decent enough actress. I wanted to see a real reaction." And so I'm Irish and I'm stubborn as you know what. And I said, okay, I'll take that on as a challenge.
Mhm.
And so I saw in my delivery lines, I remember while I was delivering those lines and saying, "Oh yeah, Mike, remember him, the guy that beat the crap out of me one night?"
Oh
And
man.
Paul Thomas, his ex was not named Vera, which I was like, why do they pick on me and not the guy? But when I was watching it, it all came back, and we were both kind of in that weird place, and we used it and actually channeled something that just felt genuine and real, not over the top, not campy, but we were just kind of like, yeah, I've been through shit, and not sure I really want to go through it anymore. And it came across as as authentic.
It sure did. And that I lied. I recognized four names. I don't know if it's pronounced Weiss or Weiss, but Mark Weiss, he wrote the
Yes.
script. And
Yes.
um,
Weiss, Mark Weiss.
Mark
He wrote
Weiss,
a ton of scripts back in
oh,
the day. The guy
he,
was super prolific. Like the Steve, we called him the Stephen King of porn for a while. He
yeah,
would just knock off scripts all the time. It was amazing.
he wrote a lot of
Yeah.
scripts for Philip Marshak, and he was on All Celebrity Request last year because he wrote the Shannon McCullough film Blue Ice.
Blue Ice.
So he's the first returning person. So he's
Oh my God.
last season and this season.
That's so great. What a great man. Great
Um,
writer, too.
so we are getting down to the wire. We have 3.5 minutes left. Uh, First of all, just real quick, thank you so much for doing this. Anytime you want anything from me, I'm here. And you have my phone number, my email. We live 2 hours apart from each other. Thank you so much for giving me your time.
It's been a pleasure. Anytime you need anything from me, same. And I can't wait to have you on my podcast.
Oh, I'm there. Okay, real question. I will punch myself in the face if I don't ask you this question. I have always been a Porsche Lynn fan. Oh, and also, I'm going to do this without you in front of the green screen, but you are now in the 10 movie club. This is this is
Woo, woo, woo.
this is your 10th movie.
with
Um,
so many great with so many greats. I mean, there's so many greats from that era, and that's what I loved about you was you really had the great ones. Like you just mentioned Shannon McCullough, Nina Hartley. I mean, some of the great ones, Paul Thomas, John Luz, I mean, really great. So I'm over the moon.
um, I was always a Porsche Lynn fan, but I felt in between us doing Innocent Taboo and Maxine, I always have a current like this is my top spot. And even when there's a new top spot that's not a slight, but you were in the top spot for so long, and Maxine was just I still can't believe that Maxine is an editing thing. Like or Max Headroom is an editing project. And so he didn't have to do that. The editor made him go, But you in Maxine, you did the editing for them. I was like, look at her go.
Yes. Yes, it took a while. We had a lot of takes with that. But I kept saying, "Can't you guys fix this in post?"
Exactly. I brought it up on the Maxine episode. I'm like, they should be doing this for her.
Agree. Well, what a classic thing way before its time, right?
Hmm.
Porn was again, porn is always mirroring what the collective is doing, and sometimes they didn't like it, but I mean, just it's Maxine is just stands alone. There's nothing like it out there.
It's so good.
And yeah, I agree. And I was lucky my career. I had so many great opportunities because other actresses were turning them down. There were so many times I got parts. Maxine, I got that part because there was a bunch of people that wouldn't take it. Night Trips. I got my part in Night Trips because nobody would take the doctor role. I so wanted to be in that Andrew Blake movie. I mean, I was almost camped out on his doorstep. I was like, I'll do anything, Andrew Blake, that kind of thing. And he's like, no, I don't want you, Portia. You're used up. I don't want you. And finally, I get the call, and he's like, oh, I got nobody that'll play this part. And I'm like, I'll take it. I'll take it. And so I ended up with